Hello everyone, welcome back to our Step to Engineer channel. Today's topic is a continuation of last week's discussion on how to construct pressure vessels. We'll dive deeper into the specifications related to this section. So, in the previous week, we talked about how specifications came to be. Now that these specifications have been established, we move on to the general specifications. At that point, if a large company creates its own specifications, those specifications cannot simply be reused universally. For example, the same specifications cannot be applied to a project in the Eastern Hemisphere, a project in the Western Hemisphere, or even in extremely cold environments without adjustments. The reason is that each region has its own unique conditions, such as climate differences, seismic activity, or specific requirements from local governments and regional design organizations. These governing bodies might mandate that certain documents be included if the construction takes place in their area. Similarly, manufacturers may require additional documentation. All these factors, combined with varying local needs, mean that specifications must be adjusted and tailored to suit the specific conditions of each location. Therefore, for every project, regardless of its nature, the required specifications must be reviewed and adjusted repeatedly to meet the specific needs of each individual project. In this way, for a specific project, the specifications for documentation include details on what types of documents need to be submitted and how they should be presented. This is referred to as the specification for documentation. The general specification refers to the basic requirements, which are the company's fundamental needs and standards for the project. This is the general specification for heat exchanger, which discusses what aspects need to be considered. This is the general specification for pressure vessel. Next, the specifications include which materials should be used, the required hardness for each material, how they should be applied, and which materials are allowed for use. It also includes specifications for piping. In this way, various specifications are aligned with the revision numbers of each specification and corresponding documentation. The vendors then assess whether they can construct the materials based on the required data sheets provided in these documents. If they confirm they can fabricate the materials, they will proceed to send the conditions and submit the requisition for quotation RFQ. In this process, the vendors review the specifications according to their standards. If they confirm they can meet the requirements, they send the conditions. Once these conditions are accepted, the most preferred vendor, who offers the complete design requirements at the lowest price, is selected to carry out the work. When the work is assigned, it's not done in a simple or straightforward manner. In the purchase order PO, they include detailed information such as the document revisions, the data sheet revisions, the specification list, and the revision numbers. They specify that this vendor has been assigned the work, and all these details are included in the PO in one go. After including all the details in the purchase order PO, the work will proceed accordingly. However, during the course of the project, at some point, it is possible that either the vendor or the owner might dispute that the supplied items do not align with what was originally specified. Both the vendor and the owner could potentially raise objections at this stage. At that point, if there is a dispute, the specification revision number and the details of the purchase order PO will be referred to, showing what was agreed upon. If the supplied items do not align with the specifications, the division list will be used to demonstrate the disagreement. In such cases, it is important to have a signed agreement or documented proof on paper from either party to show the agreed-upon terms and resolve the issue. The party that holds and can present the evidence will have the advantage. I want to bring up something that came to my mind regarding that, and I want to discuss it with the client. Around 10 years ago, large foreign country companies entered Myanmar, and in the project area where they were establishing their projects, Myanmar vendors were involved in providing fruits, vegetables, and other supplies for the workers to eat and drink. They were awarded the work under a tender agreement. They came with the specifications and asked, "Can you work according to these documents?" The vendors selling the fruits and vegetables read the documents, agreed to them, and then signed the agreement. After signing, the vendor didn't immediately deliver the goods. Instead, they agreed to supply the items in multiple shipments, and payment would only be made after several deliveries were completed. However, when the time came, that company stopped making payments. When the vendor threatened to take legal action for the unpaid money, the company responded with something troubling. They pointed out that in the purchase order PO, there was a clause stating that if any issue or dispute arose, the legal proceedings could only take place in their country's courts, making it legally binding. At the beginning, they disregarded it, saying it wasn't important, and didn't mention anything about that clause at the PO stage. Then, when the real issue occurred and the vendor faced the challenge of taking the case to the court in the company's country, the legal costs were unaffordable. In such situations, the company took advantage, and the vendor ended up settling or backing down, facing a situation where they had to let everything go. This kind of experience has been encountered before. This is to highlight the importance of documentation and these official papers. This means that once the PO is issued, construction of the materials will begin, and it can be constructed as per the specifications. We need to specify the number of welders, the workforce, and the quality of machinery available when working on international projects. It's crucial to provide documentation proving whether the manufacturer holds the necessary license to construct pressure vessels or heat exchangers. If we cannot provide that documentation, we won't be able to prove that the materials we have constructed are approved for use in international projects, such as those in major oil fields. Without certification from the relevant insurance companies or approval from inspectors, the materials will not be accepted. Therefore, the construction license is also very important. Once the PO is received, only manufacturers with the necessary license to build pressure vessels can construct the equipment. These licensed manufacturers are the ones who can ensure that the pressure vessel meets the standards required for use in international oil fields and other areas where global companies operate. Therefore, the manufacturers responsible for the construction must have the appropriate licenses according to the specific region. For example, if the ASME code is to be used, the manufacturer must hold the U-stamp certification, proving they are an ASME certified manufacturer. Similarly, in Europe, the manufacturer must have the N certification, and for API standards, the relevant API manufacturer license must be obtained. Since we are continuing as an ASME manufacturer, we will proceed to explain further as an ASME certified manufacturer. Once the work is approved, the data sheet will specify the requirements for the equipment, such as the need to fabricate a U-stamp vessel. Once the customer provides the required specifications and data sheet, including design pressure, design temperature, and other necessary details, and the work is approved, the design process begins. Drawings are created based on the specifications, and once completed, the drawings are submitted back to the customer for approval. After the customer's engineers review the drawings, they will suggest changes, such as modifying nozzle positions or addressing areas that are unclear or not as expected. They will request revisions for these design aspects and provide comments to be incorporated into the final design. Once the comments are received from the customer, we make the necessary revisions and adjustments. After completing the changes, the second version of the design is submitted for review. When the second version is submitted, the comments typically indicate whether the design will be rejected, approved, or approved with comments. In most cases, since they don't want to change the process, the design is often approved with comments, following Design Code 2, as per their standards. Design Code 2 means the design is approved with comments. Work can start on areas without comments, and revisions based on the comments can be made before proceeding with materials and other tasks. This way, the process can continue without interruption. We will revise the design based on the comments, combine the feedback, and update the drawings accordingly. Once the drawings are updated, the QC and QA teams will also follow the required procedures and standards. They will send the finalized comments and procedures back to the customer for review and approval. The required changes are submitted in the second segmentation, and at this stage, it is no longer submitted to the customer. Since the vessel is U-stamp specified, the ASME Association sent a representative and an authorized inspector AI to ensure the design meets the specified standards. Then, we submitted the design and drawings we calculated to the AI for review. After submitting the documents and drawings, the customer and AI reviewed them. Once everything was checked, and the customer was satisfied with the revisions, they approved the documents and returned them to us. After receiving the approval, the AI requested additional requirements. We added those requirements and made revisions accordingly. Once the revisions were completed, We submitted the updated documents to both parties for review again. After submitting the revisions, the areas that hadn't received comments were approved. As a result, we proceeded with purchasing the materials and starting the fabrication process, including all necessary inspections. Once everything was completed, the large vessel was successfully constructed. The AI not only evaluates our designs but also reviews NDD, which stands for non-destructive test reports, as well as actual virtual tests. At every stage and level, it acts as a witness, and only then does it sign off on the document stating that the equipment is approved on behalf of the ASME Association. Once the document is signed, and the manufacturer has constructed the vessel, the completed vessel must be handed over to the customer. If the vessel is to be handed over to the customer, it cannot be done as is. To hand it over properly, for example, if a vessel is designed with a design pressure of 10 bars and is to be constructed, here's what needs to happen. According to the ASME code, to confirm that the vessel can withstand 10 bars, a hydro test must be performed by filling it with water and applying a pressure higher than 10 bars. That pressure test is conducted in our own workshops. During the pressure test, the ASME acts as a witness and observes the process to ensure compliance. Once the test is completed as mentioned, and the AI signs off on it, only then can the equipment be delivered to the customer. That is the standard procedure. Sometimes, if the customer feels that the standard procedure isn't sufficient, they may seek additional assurance. In such cases, the customer might ask for further verification from another insurance company to obtain additional proof. Additionally, the customer may specify certain requirements, and they will have these explicitly defined to ensure everything meets their expectations. They act as witnesses, similar to the U-Stand AI. Other documents also need to be submitted to them for review. Once they verify everything, they will sign and approve the equipment, specifying that it meets the required standards. They, along with us and the U-Stand AI, confirm that everything is specified correctly. In the end, the U-Stand also approves the documents, ensuring all requirements are met. Once the third party approves, and all approvals are in place from everyone involved, including the manufacturer, the equipment can be delivered to the customer. After that, the relevant certifications and MDRs are submitted along with the delivery. At this point, the process of delivering the pressure vessel is complete. You're very welcome. I'm glad I could help explain the basic principles of building a pressure vessel.